It's the Infectious Groove Podcast, part of the Odd Pods Media Network. Recorded from Detroit, Michigan, and Jacksonville, Florida. The Infectious Groove Podcast is your source for jammy jams, album reviews, and the best in-depth music discussion. Thanks for joining us. Now here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome to an after holiday, probably hungover for most people listening to this episode of the Infectious Groove Podcast. My name is Russ, and we have a super special treat for you this week because you've heard Lauren from the Beard Owl Podcast on our show before. You've heard John from the Beard Owl Podcast on our show before, but what you have not heard, what earth-shaking, groundbreaking, and innovative thing that's about to take place is John and Lauren from the Beard Owl Podcast are going to be on the program tonight. Let me first address my favorite of the two. John, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. And Lauren's here as well.
I'm here.
How are you, Lauren?
I'm great, thank you.
You're not engaged in anything else?
I'm not engaged in anything else,
this
no.
evening? No?
No.
You just come right on the show.
Yeah.
I don't know if people saw on social media or not, but you and I did, in fact, get engaged.
We did.
Not in a fight or anything, but to be married.
Yes.
Yep.
Betrothed.
Betrothed, if you will. So what John and Lauren are going to do is sit in on our program, which of course means during the first half, we're going to share some feedback. We're going to share our jammy jams, what all three of us have been listening to and why. Then when we get into the second half of the program, we are going to do an album review. And about every time we get through Michelle and I's album reviews, when we circle back around, we usually have a crowd pick. And I hadn't put any feelers out in a while for a crowd pick. And since John, this is his second appearance on our show, I said, well, hey, why not just let John pick the album? So John picked for us the Gorillaz, Plastic Beach. So in the second half of the program, we are going to walk through our review of that album. But before that, we have a couple segments to get all through.
Feedback, Joe.
Don't worry about that. Right. There's rock and roll be without feedback.
I believe all the feedback we have this week is from our episode last week, which sometimes we have stuff that's like filtered in straggles from episodes weeks ago, but I believe everything is from this week. Garrett writes in regarding our review, our cover battle between Dolly Parton and the White Stripes for Jolene. He says, I had no idea the White Stripes even covered this song. There's definitely more pain in his singing, and the song is heavier and sounds haunting. While I could pass on the song altogether, the White Stripes did do a great job. Sean and Chris, our friends from the Dad in the Rock YouTube channel, write in and say, I think we all gasped at the same time when Michelle said she had a multitude of jammy jams. What's more shocking, the multitude of jammy jams or the fact that Michelle's going to run a 5K?
The 5K.
We don't know yet that she's going to run a 5K. I'm pretty sure she's going to walk a 5K and drink, which, by the way, I'm not casting stones. That is how I would do a 5K.
But did she say run a 5K or do a 5K?
She's training. She's running.
Running?
In prep. Yep.
I've always said that if you catch me running, you better run with me because something's chasing me.
Yeah, I concur. Sean and Chris go on to write that the cover battle isn't even close for me. Dolly Parton version of Jolene is miles better. Now, saying that the feeling the White Stripes bring in the song had me at first, but I couldn't finish it, which I get. The White Stripes are one of those things that are some people love and some people don't. I used to say, if you get it, you get it, but that suggests that it might be above someone. It's not that it's above anybody. I could just see it not being for some people. Lastly, Sean and Chris write in and say, Michelle's open discussion had me in tears, which if you did not hear last week's episode, it was a very typical Michelle moment where she wanted to make sure that we made time for open discussion, and then she had about half of one point to make regarding open discussion. Our friends over at the Docking Bay Podcast, which, by the way, if you haven't listened to their last episode as of the time this episode comes out, you should go check out their show because I went over there to do a little chit and a little chat about the Nirvana Unplugged record, and it was a very, very good episode. So Docking Bay Podcast, check their last episode out right after you get done listening to this one. They were in regarding our Jolene episode and say, another great episode. I'm going with Dolly's version. I love her voice. If you get a chance, check out the Netflix movie Dumplin'. The soundtrack is almost all Dolly, and it's such a cute movie. Thanks as always for making Mondays good. which I love to hear when they say that for us. Seth writes in and says, great episode. I love the Rumble Bucket shout out. Definitely worth recommend listening to them more. I think this really should have been a three-way battle between Miley Cyrus, Dolly Parton, and the White Stripes because Miley Cyrus version holds its own. Hot take, I would have said it was the best of the three versions. Seth, keep your hot take to yourself. We keep this program as positive as possible most times, and I do not enjoy Miley Cyrus's voice. That's the nicest way to say that.
That's a nice way to say it. I mean, when I saw Seth provide that feedback to you, I was going to chime in and say that like this is not without precedent, as you also excluded the Billy Joel version of "To Make You Feel My Love."
I did.
So you're just all about excluding.
Well, we just went with the good versions. Our friend Nick Macchiato writes in. Yeah.
And you said yes.
Our friend Nick Macchiato writes in and says, the open discussion portion had me feeling like Michelle and Hillary backed Russ into a corner saying, quote, men are pigs, and taking the look of concern on Russ's face. And he, of course, used the correct punctuation for the...
possessive of Russ?
Which was he spells R-U apostrophe S-S apostrophe S apostrophe S apostrophe 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 apostrophe, which I think is right.
I think that's right. I teach college.
Right. And Hillary wrote in and said, no, it wasn't. That wasn't the case at all. And I joked a few times about like being backed into a corner type thing. But I mean, and I mentioned this on the episode, but we're sitting here with two very strong women talking about a song written by a very strong woman. And there were a lot of points where I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the thing I wish more people would do online and just shut up and let other people talk about this, So, no, they didn't back me into any sort of corner. And I know Nick's just kidding, but that was very, very humorous to me. Anyways, if you would like to leave us feedback, you sure can do that. You can either go over to Michelle's home, and I will provide her home address for you upon request, or you can follow us on any social media. Leave us feedback there. You can also call 313-364-9899, and I do believe Seth is going to call 313-364-9899 this week after I flat out called out the Miley Cyrus situation. Mm-hmm. Moving along to the single best segment in the history of podcasting, our jammies. Whether or not you do weddings in Southern California, you love music. I'll tell you what, I love music. I am such a fan of this segment because this is something that when we first came up with this, I was like, oh man, that'd be so cool to tell people. And then I thought, well, who would care what we've been listening to? You know what I mean? But we get so much feedback on this section. Like people love hearing what we're listening to. So I am going to split up the Beard Owl siblings here and have Lauren go first and share with us what you've been listening to.
Oh, thank you. I have 3.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yes. My first one is Lost in Your Eyes by Debbie Gibson.
Yeah, and we can call her Debbie again now.
Yes. Well, she's always been Debbie in my heart. Mm-hmm. You know what? We were flipping through YouTube the other day and this song came up, and then I don't think I'd heard it in at least 15 years, and I knew all of the words.
Yeah.
And I probably listened to it about a half a dozen times since then.
Yeah, it's
so good.
Song. The thing that Debbie Gibson people don't think about for that era is that she wrote all of her own stuff. Mm-hmm. And she was good at instruments, which a lot of the, because that led to you and I watching Paula Abdul and Tiffany and whatnot, and people who didn't write their own songs and were not necessarily good at instruments. So Debbie Gibson, I think, gets the short end of the stick as far as that goes.
She absolutely does. John, how much did I like Debbie Gibson when I was a kid?
Very much so.
All of it?
Yes. Yes.
She liked all of it.
If there was one artist, well, maybe not one in particular, but if I was asked maybe 25 years ago, hey, what's your sister's favorite music artist? Debbie Gibson would be like one of the first ones listed.
Right on.
Yeah.
Can't be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
You said you had 2 more?
I do have 2 more. My second one is Follow You, Follow Me by Genesis, because I have been on a Phil Collins kick.
You have.
Very much.
I've been on a Phil Collins kick.
I really have.
I'm not even mad at it.
No, it's a good kick to be on.
Right on. What else do you got?
And my last one is No One's Gonna Love You by CeeLo Green. This is from his 2010 album, The Lady Killer, which I was obsessed with when it came out. John, you remember me being obsessed with The Lady Killer when it came out.
I remember you being obsessed with that, yes.
And I just found out, like, now this is me being dumb. This is another one I didn't know was a cover. Like, this was like my favorite song on this album, and it is like it is a cover of a Band of Horses song. And I listened to the Band of Horses song, and I was like, oh nope, CeeLo Green was definitely meant to do this because his like version of it is just so slick.
Better.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, those are diverse, that's for sure.
Thank
we
you.
like that. I have no diversity in my Jammy Jams this week. We watched the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony the other night, and because of, and I heard online Eminem did an quote amazing performance, and I found Eminem's performance to be serviceable, at least, was my review of Eminem's performance. However, it did remind me that I think his second and third records are the two greatest rap albums ever made by anybody ever. And sometimes I just go back and forth between them, which one's the best. And so I invested a significant amount of time this week, pretty much any time I had time in my office or whatever else, just throwing on those two records. And they're just ridiculous. He's done some good stuff after those two here and there, but those two records are just insane. So it was a lot of Eminem for me. It's one of those things that, like, I say this all, I've said this on the show many, many times, but if you go long enough in between hearing the song Stan and then you hear it again, it hits you like how amazing, what an amazing piece of art that is. And the whole rest of both of those albums is that good. It's just stunning. So we go from diversity for Lauren to absolutely no diversity for me. I was listening to one artist and two different albums by that same artist. John, back cleanup for us. What are your Jammy Jams?
All right. So my first Jammy Jam will be a song from an album that I almost chose for this, but I was told that French electronic music might not be the way to go.
Who's to say?
So the song I will choose for my first Jammy Jam is Alpha Beta Gaga by Air off of their 2004, I believe it was, album called Talkie Walkie.
Right on.
I love the entire album, but I'll pick that one because that one is the biggest earworm ever. If you listen to that song, it will be in your head for days.
Right on. We put all the Jammy Jams on the playlist, so like we will make sure to put it on there, and hopefully people will get it stuck in their head.
I hope.
What else you got?
I've got a very ironic song. It's a song by FFS, which is a collaboration of Franz Ferdinand and Sparks.
Oh,
and the song is called "Collaborations Don't Work."
Nice.
It's a great ironic song, pretty avant-garde in its way, and again, I like all of the songs on that album, but that's a great one. And then with the time of year, I think my last Jammy Jam is going to be the most famous Christmas song by our Aunt Mariah, All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Okay, So when this started, I was going to say out loud, don't say it, because I thought you were going to say Wonderful Christmas Time by Paul McCartney, which makes me want to become violent toward anyone. Like, I dislike that song so much. You know what? We hear a bunch of stuff this time of year against All I Want for Christmas. I don't care what anybody says. That's a great song.
Yes, it's lovely. It's wonderful.
That's a great song. So that's been already on your jams. How do you think you'll feel about it in, say, 3 weeks?
In 3 weeks? No. And actually, it's not already on my Jammy Jams. I'm just spinning it up in my head to get onto the Jammy Jam.
Getting yourself pumped up. It's in the batter circle. Yeah, it's in the on deck circle.
Yeah, I've got to support us carries wherever I can.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, y'all are doing all right for yourselves. You got the podcast. Your one uncle has a game show. Took over from Bob Barker, your aunt.
Well, he's had a couple game shows now, right?
Yeah.
Whose Line?
Yeah. So the Carey family's doing all right. Yeah. I mean, Lauren recently got engaged to an amazing dude. I've met him.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
He's great.
Has a very successful podcast in his own right.
Ooh.
So
I've never met him.
It's not all it's cracked up to be. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, I with Christmas music, I don't have, you're talking to a retail veteran. I've worked in retail from like age 17 up until like 5 years ago. I finally got out of like customer facing retail of some sort. And so I'm the guy that heard Christmas music for, 10, 12 hours a day for a month and a half. And none of it really irritates me. The only one is that McCartney song. As soon as it starts, the moment I hear the first notes of that song, I become physically unstable.
Cool.
Yep. So please don't ever play that around. Yeah, no, don't do that.
Don't even do that. That was too good.
What a great way to go into a break. Having said that, we are excited because in the second half of the episode, we have a album review. And not only do we have an album review, we have the person with us who picked the album for us. So in the second half of the show, we're going to get into our review of Plastic Beach by Gorillaz. You're listening to the Infectious Groove Podcast on the Odd Pods Media Network.
Hey, I'm Pantsless Aaron.
This is Stevie.
And I'm Augie.
And we are BFYTW, a podcast all about playing games and having fun. Our games are usually based on British panel shows and game shows, but we'll play anything that captures our attention and imagination. Why? It's right there in the title.
You'll never guess what the F stands for.
Hey, it's Dalton.
And Sam.
We want to tell you about our podcast called Big 10 Plus 4.
Are you a college football fan who doesn't want to always be talking about the SEC?
Are you a college basketball fan who's tired of hearing how the Big 10 doesn't win in the big dance?
Then we're the show for you. Check us out each week on the Odd Pods Media Network. We bring you college sports with a Big 10 flavor.
Big 10 Plus 4. College sports with Midwest perspective. Blue collar and blue blood.
We are back. It's Russ from the Infectious Groove Podcast. And along with me this week, you have a special treat. You're not hearing double. It's both people from the Beard Owl Podcast on with us this week, both Lauren and John. And on top of that, John picked our album for review this week, which I think is pretty slick.
I think it's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. John brought to the table for us Gorillaz Plastic Beach, which is the third album for the Gorillaz. This was brought to the world on March 3rd, 2010. The record not only features the members of Gorillaz, the virtual band, but it also has Snoop Dogg, Mos Def, Bobby Womack, and many more. So there's quite a few guest stars on this record. It debuted at number 2 in both the US and the UK and yielded 3 singles, Stylos, Superfast, Jellyfish, and On Melancholy Hill. When we do this, I usually have, if we do a crowdsourced pick, I usually have the person who picked the album write into us and tell us why they wanted us to review the record. But again, we have the person on with us who actually picked the record for us. So John, why is it that you have picked this record? Well, besides the aforementioned, your first pick was given the no. Why did you pick this album for us after you were told no on the first choice?
Well, I just think back to a lot of albums that I've listened to quite a bit. And I remember when this album came out, I was in my last semester of college, and I listened to this a lot while I was doing my schoolwork. And so it's just like in my brain, I listen to it on repeat a couple times a year.
Right on. It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that about schoolwork. I've got a point on that later regarding the record, but go on.
When people think of Gorillaz, they think of Feel Good Inc. first, which, of course, that's their big hit. They think of Clint Eastwood, which was their first big hit, but not many people think of any songs on this record.
Right.
It didn't do as good as the other two that came before it, but to me, this album is just a little bit better. It's a little catchier in some ways, and I just wanted to put it in people's minds to maybe give it a spin.
Right on. Well, yeah, and that's the thing too. I know we joke about your first choice not being it was turned down, but that's just because like we do try and keep it like somewhat in the middle, like things people would know, you know. I mean, if nothing else, shameless for clicks, you know, fans of the band to be like, oh yeah, we'll listen to that. And with this band, I totally get that too, where it's like, you know, like if I was going to pick Pink Floyd, it's not going to be Dark Side of the Moon, you know, like it's going to be, It's not something that's been talked to death. So I like doing a record that's not the one that everybody would instantly think is going to get talked up. And I would imagine fans of the band are probably sick of talking about the first two records as well. So makes a lot of sense. So as we go through this, we usually ask for the best tracks of the record for each of us, what were our favorite tracks were on the record. Then we go through and see if anybody had any stinkers. Then we do any open discussion. Hopefully y'all brought more open discussion than Michelle's half a point from last week. Then we ask if you would buy this album. And then we ask if you would recommend this record. Then we give our rating on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, and hopefully some sort of justification. I know in the past we've had album ratings that there are seemingly no justification Vacation 4. So
Yeah.
like the time Pet Sounds got a 5 out of 10. But
Wrong.
I will never let that go.
You shouldn't. No, you're fully justified in hanging on to that.
Yeah. I want at my
Right, yeah, it really more deserves like a 2, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, having said that, going into this record, Plastic Beach by the Gorillaz, we'll start with Lauren first. What were your best tracks on this record?
So one thing that I learned from this record is that I probably need to check out Little Dragon because because my 2 favorite tracks on this album were To Binge and Empire Ants. And then because I kind of listened to it without really paying attention to who the guest artist was on each of the tracks and whatnot, and just kind of keeping little mental notes for myself and stuff. And then I checked and I was like, oh my God, my top 2 are both Little Dragon. So I should probably listen to Little Dragon.
I like when that happens. And this actually I was on someone else's podcast the other night and we were talking, no, it was on my own show 2 weeks ago. Oh, and we were talking about when people guest on other tracks. And there was apparently the whole world had heard of Kendrick Lamar before me. And Mayor Hawthorne's 3rd album, Where Does the Store Go?, which he will never top, is his best album by a long shot. There's a song on it where Kendrick Lamar does a verse, and the whole world had heard of this guy except for me. And halfway through that verse, I was like, who is this dude? Like, I need to hear it. And then, of course, like you Google him and you're like, oh, it turns out I'm just last to the party on this.
Yeah.
But I love that when people collab and you end up picking up something that you're going to, like, now you have a whole artist you're going to look into.
Yeah, I am yet to do it, but they're Swedish, so I'm sure I'm going to love it.
Yeah, well, you're the biggest ABBA fan I know. So,
yeah, it's true.
Yeah. What else do you got for best song?
I also liked Superfast Jellyfish and On Melancholy Hill. Superfast Jellyfish, it made me chuckle, and I liked the chorus quite a bit. And I liked On Melancholy Hill mostly because of its placement on the album, how it felt so different than the track before it. And it was jarring in a good way in that it took it to a more melodic place that I enjoyed.
Right. Yeah, I hear that. That was one of mine. I'm going to let John go next on best tracks on the record. And then, but yeah, that was one of mine as well. Or I'm sorry, did you have more? Or was that
Nope, I had those 4.
Just making sure. John, I mean, it's funny because when a person is the person who picked the record, like we sometimes have to stop them from being like all of it is my favorite track. But if you have to pick out like the cream of the crop for you, what are those songs?
Well, I don't want to be the guy that picks all the singles, so I won't. But I'll agree with Lauren that Superfast Jellyfish and On Melancholy Hill were great. I'm going to pick the other single, Stylo. That's really the song that made me fall in love with the album. It's just the flow of Mos Def in the first section, and then like Bobby Womack's little interjections. That track is just great. And then, of course, 2D. We all know it's Damon Albarn, but 2D is the Gorillaz singer. It's just great. I love Damon's singing voice. So it's the best of all 3 worlds of Gorillaz in that one song.
Right.
The people that they have in and themselves.
Right.
I really, in a certain mood, I like Pirate Jet. It's got that, like, it's a lighter feel to the music in a way, but it also has like this sneaking around feeling. Mm-hmm. And the lyrics are just very simple, and it repeated twice, and that's it.
Right.
So that one's fun. And then I occasionally get Cloud of Unknowing stuck in my head because that's also fun to sing. So both Bobby Womack songs.
Right. Yeah.
So that I guess means that I should listen to Bobby Womack.
You should.
Just like.
Yeah, you should. And for me, Mos Def and Bobby Womack were the ones that for me, I was like, yes, these 2 folks are involved. And yeah, of course, Mos Def's flow. It's ridiculous. I also picked 2 singles for my best tracks with a side of a non-single. But while I was typing this list, I was feeling self-conscious. I was like, oh, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to pick singles. But then Lauren did it and you did it. So I'm happy. Stylo. For sure, exactly for the reasons that you mentioned. Mos Def you cannot mess with at all, and especially on this track. Superfast Jellyfish was another one that I had on my list of best tracks. And then a non-single that I thought was great was Glitter Freeze. I like that a great deal.
Glitter Freeze was good too.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a great deal. When we go into stinkers, this is probably where the episode's going to go a little downhill for me. So I'm going to start with my stinkers first and then let you 2 round it out because I assume you either have less stinkers than I do or are not as upset about the stinkers as I am. My stinkers come right off the top. Like, I had a very, very hard time digging into this record from the get. So the intro track, Welcome to the World of Plastic Beach and White Flag, all three in a row for me were like a big problem. Like, I had a hard time digging into the record. That's why, and I'm not looking at the track list right now, but I think Stylo comes right after those. And I think that's why, I think by default, it's either right after those or it's in that run. And
Rhinestone Eyes is after White Flag, but then Stylo. So,
okay, yeah. And that's where the album took an upswing for me. You know, if you listen to the show for any length of time or even had a conversation with me in public when you weren't even trying to talk to me about music, I will go on about track listing and things flowing. And the start of this record, I was like, are they like not trying to have people be engaged in this? You know, and again, I do have some positive points to bring up when we get to open discussion regarding that. And I feel more validated in my points because it touches on at least one thing you already mentioned, John, like what you use the record for or why it's important to you. Having said that, are there any stinkers on here for you? Now, there's been some controversy in the past regarding our stinkers. We don't mean that they're like, it's the worst song ever. We just mean like, what on here are you like, they could have done without that one?
I'm going to 100% agree with you with White Flag. Now, I like the orchestral intro and Welcome to the World of the Plastic Beach. I do enjoy the flow of Welcome to the World, and I guess as I've listened to it so much as I was studying the orchestral, it was just like, it got me back into that calming,
right?
Like, you know what? I'm back in this mode. I typically skip Broken. It's an okay song, but I just skip it. And also Rhinestone Eyes is probably the third one that I would like skip like half the time.
A song that I was engaged in so little that I forgot that it was there when I was mentioning, you know, the lead up to where the record kicked in for me.
Yeah.
Lauren, did you have any stinkers on this record? And if so, what and why?
I did. I did not care for Glitter Freeze.
Oh, no.
I know.
Well, engagement off.
For the second time in this episode. No. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little too for me. And I was just, I can't.
Is it the fact that it kind of started out with some Morse code that I've always wondered what it actually said in Morse code?
Yeah, it wasn't even that. It was just, it was too much of that noise that I'm not going to make again.
Yeah.
It
And
was a stunning recreation, though.
thank you. Thank you yes, I'm pretty good at that kind of stuff. And man, the nicest way for me to say this is I really disliked Some Kind of Nature.
Yeah.
You just probably don't like Lou Reed.
I like Lou Reed, and I wanted to like this song. I didn't.
I like Lou Reed. I was indifferent to the song, but I could see many people being like, why is this guy talking over this? Because Lou Reed does the talking.
Yeah,
thing,
and it was like, it didn't, of all of the things, I think I disliked this because, now, this is a very eclectic album, okay? And for things being eclectic, this song didn't feel like it fit. And this reminds me of, I'm going to do it because it's a great analogy. The season premiere of my favorite TV show, Frasier. Frasier has all of these pieces of furniture in his apartment that don't match, but they're all very, very high end. And so they go together. And then his dad moves in with his crummy old easy chair and he puts it in. And Frasier's like, but this doesn't go with the apartment. And then his dad's like, but it's eclectic. And this song is the dad's chair of this album.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see that. For me, I think one thing this record suffers from is I think they just threw everything at it that they had at the time. And I feel like if you remove I'm not even here to say which ones. Well, and actually we're kind of moving into open discussion with this, so we might as well shift into that. But I feel like you remove one or two tracks from this record and you have a lot more concise piece to listen to. And again, I'm not even going to say which ones I think should go. But I do feel like if they had like trimmed it down a little bit, it would be just a more concise and straightforward piece. And my big issue with the record is like, it's very, at least for my taste, the middle of the record is fantastic. It took too long to get going at the start for me. And then after the middle part, I just kind of drifted off. Like I had to listen to it like 3 times to try and refocus on the end of the record. You know what I'm saying? So for me, the record, the middle part was like, where the gold is on this record. And then this is the thing that I was going to say. I had in my notes that you mentioned earlier, John. I was like, I bet this record is great for tasks, for zoning out, for studying. You know, like if you need to concentrate on something and you want music on it, I was going to say noise, but that's the wrong word. Like this is good. It's good music. If you want music on in the background, but you want something that you're not going to pay strict attention to that could help you stay focused, this is your record, in my opinion.
And it's so funny. I literally had that exact point because I listened to this while I was working, and it helped. Yeah. It helped, you know, because I had a couple, you know, because I really dug into it. I listened to it, you know, after you brought it up again, you know, up for this, but I really dug into it today while I was doing some relatively like menial tasks for work, and like it helped.
Yeah, me too. You know, I had a busier day at work than I planned on today, and like that's part of why I kept losing the second half of the record, because I would get busy at work, but then I was like going extra fast at work because this was so like, it's a weird thing for me because I don't want to come down on the record because it definitely serves a purpose. And I'm sure there are people who intently listen to it. But for me, this was like, well, man, if I wanted to put something on and like just focus, this is it, you know? And that obviously that works the same for you, right, John?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll agree with you that maybe not necessarily getting rid of a couple songs, even though we all kind of thought that there were some clunkers, as we say, but we all had different clunkers. Did you notice that?
Right. Yep. Yeah.
So it's hard to say which one.
Right. That's why
Lawrence Clunkers is one of your favorites, and all this and that and
that's
the other.
Why I didn't even go down that path. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's nothing really to cut. I think just maybe a slight rearrangement. Like maybe if Stylo was number 3 instead of number 5.
Right.
Because that gets you engaged in it earlier, and maybe White Flag gets put like maybe way down at the end. So I'll agree with you on that a little bit of a rearrangement might be necessary. I listen to this a lot on shuffle.
Yeah, I'm so big into track listings. You know?
Yeah, I was in college, man.
No. I'm not coming down on you or anybody else for how they listen to music. It's probably because I'm an album guy, you know, like a vinyl LP album guy, you know, and I'm just used to when one song ends, the next one starts, and there's like whole bands. I don't know why. I was listening to a lot of GNR last week, so maybe that's in my head. But like, if I hear like Civil War by GNR on the radio as it's ending, every time the DJ talks, I'm like, but 14 years though, like, because I'm used to exactly the thing that happens next. You know what I mean? But I could not agree more that this record needs a track listing doctor like fast.
As a listener of the Infectious Groove podcast, I can't help but wonder, Russ, if you're maybe, I don't know, just used to an album that is maybe only like 38 minutes long, and the fact that this is nearly 20 minutes longer than the last album review I'm okay with long records. We have a person who is conspicuous by her absence here on the show this week who does not like a record that's longer than just about 35, 38 minutes. But yeah, no, I'm fine with long records. I mean, my favorite record of all time hangs right around 80 minutes, you know? I think John hit the nail on the head better than I did. Maybe not lose tracks, but definitely shuffle these some.
Yeah, shuffle them around. I think what this album suffers from is something we touched on a little earlier of the success of Demon Days.
Yep.
Right? So Demon Days, great record, great single, huge hit off of that, and just about every track on Demon Days is great. And you see a lot of people, at least I do in my circle, I see a lot of people when they're listing their top 10 albums, top 20 albums, I see Demon Days a lot.
Yeah.
I never see Plastic Beach. And I think it's because, you know, it came out, the singles might not have been as strong, and then you listen to it and it takes a while to get into it, like you said. And so it's just like, okay, people are just going to kind of disregard it. And people disregarded it so much, but they also forget that Gorillaz released a second album in 2010 called The Fall that even I haven't listened to a lot.
Yeah.
And then it took them 7 more years to release an album. And people, from what I've seen, don't like the one that was released in 2017 either, because you look at the track listing on that, every song has a feature.
Yeah.
A feature artist. And people was like, I want Gorillaz.
Yeah,
I don't want Gorillaz featuring.
That's a big reason why I've fallen off with rap. Just 2 weeks ago, we talked about our favorite rap records, and I went all the way back to the very first rap record I ever heard and walked through. I think my choices were from like 82, 91, and 02. And although Eminem's third album is sort of feature heavy, the main talent that you're invested in is on full display on that record. And I feel like when you get these records that are so feature heavy, you're just like, well, whose record did I even buy here? You know? And I'm all for collaboration.
Are we losing sight of the fact that the Gorillaz are cartoons?
Yeah, but
I mentioned it before. I mentioned it before, and I wanted to make a funny point about that.
Sure.
So I was reading the backstory of Gorillaz, and like they have this whole big long story that goes with each album. And when I was reading Phase 1, as they call it, which goes along with their first album, the reason that 2D sounds like Damon Albarn, not just because it is Damon Albarn, but I guess the reason in their world is that Damon Albarn was the vocal coach for 2D.
Oh, that's funny.
And so 2D is just trying to emulate Damon, and he's doing it so well that
that's funny. There's that this is I guess this isn't too far off the mark, but there's in the Chris Gaines Greatest Hits album, there's a huge backstory for every one of his albums, like how and why he did the music that he was doing at the time. And there's so much effort put into that record for what a gigantic commercial failure it was, unfortunately. And so when someone puts out a greatest hits record, how it's all their hits and then they record 2 new songs for it. Okay, that's how the Chris Gaines greatest hits record is. It's all these songs, all the songs sound different from each other because they're all supposed to be off different records. And then he supposedly came out of hiding to record these 2 new songs. And one of them sounds exactly like a Garth Brooks song. Like he sings it like Garth Brooks. It's a country song. And it's supposed to be a tribute to Chris's mom because she was a huge country fan and Chris never was. Like, I think that's rad that like the character of Chris Gaines wasn't a country fan, you know, and like he did this cover for his mom and he's like, yeah, this sounds like that crappy country music I don't like. You know, I think that's really cool. I also might be the only person on earth who read the entirety of the liner notes for the Chris Gaines
you might be.
record.
Well,
so,
might be.
Yeah. Did you have other points for open discussion, Lauren?
Yeah, I do. And I think this kind of goes back to what everybody was sort of saying before about, you know, like the track listing and like there's great stuff on this, but like could it have been ordered better, you know? And I think that might be partly like fault is not the right word, but I think it's probably because like this wasn't the original concept for this. It was a concept called Carousel, right? Before it was this. And like you can kind of tell that this is a thing that was repurposed.
Right.
And it feels that way. But at the same time, okay, it's Plastic Beach. And listening to it, like you can kind of think about it, the tide coming in and the tide coming out. You know, so maybe it doesn't start with a bang because it's low tide and the ocean's way out there and then it comes in and then it goes back out.
Right.
So maybe that was, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but maybe that's why the middle's the best because that's high tide. That's when you get the ocean.
Yeah, very well could be. Let me say I have no argument against that, you know, and I'm not upset that if that's the case, I'm not upset by it either. It just isn't for me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
We'll move on to our last 2 questions that we ask before we get into our rating of the record. Would you buy this record? And I wrote simply, I would not, but there's a reason why. Because music for me, and again, I can't stress enough, I'm not saying anybody else has to be like me or anyone else is doing it wrong. Music for me is a very intense listen. Like every song I put on, I am intently listening. Poor Lauren here knows that I am forever going, oh, listen to this part. And then 10 seconds later, wait, listen to this part. And then 10 seconds later, wait, listen to this part. Music is a very engaged thing for me. And any artists that I love who have put out records like this that are more contemplative or that are meant to be more of a background thing, I'm not a fan of those either. You know, so this isn't something that I would buy. I don't think I'd ever discourage anyone else from buying it or at least checking it out, but it's not something that I would buy. John, we know you bought this record, or I assume you did at some point because, well,
I did.
Now you
I
said
did.
you
Yes,
said
absolutely.
you streamed it. Maybe the guy that picked the record's not even invested enough to have bought it.
See, you could shuffle CDs.
Yeah, absolutely. I shuffled CDs in my car all the time.
Right on. Yeah, I shuffled CDs too with my Discman cassette adapter in my car.
Oh, I had one of those.
Yeah. So, anyways, John, yes, you in fact have bought the album before.
100%, yes.
Right on. Lauren, now that you have heard this record, is this something you would go out and buy?
I don't think I would go out and buy it, but I would definitely stream it.
Like full on put it on purpose, or if it came out or if someone else put it on, you wouldn't turn it off?
No, I would full on put it on purpose for the purpose that we talked about here today, for background stuff, because it was really good for that. Like if I have an intense work task, I'm going to put this on.
Right on. Now, as far as the next question goes, would you recommend?
Before you go into that, I have a follow-up question for Lauren.
Oh, yep. Go right ahead.
This album, you said that you would put it on purpose. You wouldn't go buy it, but you would stream it. Does it make you do the thing that you're going to do with Little Dragon? Would it make you go and listen to the earlier Gorillaz stuff more?
Oh, maybe.
Have you ever really listened to Demon Days or Gorillaz?
No, I might.
That's a firm maybe right there.
That is a firm maybe.
That is a pretty firm maybe.
That is a firm. I am definitely going to check out Little Dragon for sure.
Right on.
Yeah.
When we get into would you recommend, Lauren, would you recommend this record to anybody?
Yeah, I would recommend it to people. I mean, it would have to be a certain kind of person, but absolutely, there is clearly an audience for this. And
so,
if John wasn't the one that brought it up for this, I would have been like, John, you're going to love this.
Yeah. Okay. So what's funny is I rarely do this actually. Over the course of the episode, I've changed my answer. My answer to this question initially was another I would not. But in us discussing how much you two took away from this record for that specific purpose, I don't ever have anything to suggest to people if they go hey, what's good music to focus or whatever. I'm always oh no, I got nothing. I'm all Simon and Garfunkel and Roger Waters lyrics. I want to, you know what I mean? I got super deep lyrics and amazing guitar work and songs that you will not be able to focus because you'll want to dance the whole time. I don't, I have nothing. So I absolutely would if somebody people ask me that question and I'm I got nothing. And now I do. I'll be you know what you need to do is check out because I feel if I say Gorillaz before I even say their third record, people will be oh no, that's way too upbeat. That's, I can't focus that. I'll be oh, you need to try the third one. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So in that instance, I would. John, you recommended the record to us to listen to, but for this specific purpose. So would you recommend the record? I assume you'd recommend it to just about anybody.
Yes, I do. Yeah. When I talk about music that I listened to a lot in college, people don't really necessarily see me as somebody that's gonna. There's a fair amount of rap.
Oh yeah.
On this, they don't see me as a rap guy, and I'm not a rap guy. Gorillaz is the closest I get to listening to rap, and so
right on.
For me to say, oh yeah, go listen to the third album by Gorillaz, people are but that's kind of rapish. I'm it's good.
Right on. Cool. That makes sense. Yeah. When we go into our rating, we have a rating of 1 to 10, 10 being the best. And we usually ask you to give at least a reason why you would do that, whether it's the amount of stinkers or if you just don't like the artist or if the record wasn't as good as you wanted it to be or whatever. This is another thing. I've upped my rating on this since I wrote it this morning. I would give this record a 6 out of 10. And the reason why I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 is because my rating goes kind of right in my assessment of the record, where the middle of it is super hot. It falls off at the end for me, and I can't get into it at the beginning. So a little bit better than average is how that works out in my mind. All cards on the table. I initially had it at a 4, but that's because I had a strong I would not recommend until over the course of this conversation. I was oh yeah, I would totally recommend this record to a certain type of person, right? John, we will have you go last because this is your record that you brought to the table. Lauren, what did you give this 1 out of 10, or between 1 and 10?
Between 1 and 10? I was a firm 7, a solid 7.
Right on.
And for a lot of the reasons that you said, and also because I do enjoy Brit pop, and this is Brit pop that also is rap though.
This is coming from a person with almost no background on the Gorillaz. I feel like this is Britpop mashed up with trip hop, and I love trip hop. Portishead's second record, I think, is the greatest trip hop record ever made, and trip hop again for me. What I'm used to is more intensity in the lyrics, so that's why it didn't hit as hard for me as it usually does. But I see what you're saying about the sound of it.
Oh, okay. It's trip hop, but British though.
Right.
Okay.
Portishead is British. Go on. I'm just kidding. It's all good. But yes, I hear what you're saying, and I understand why the record came in higher for you than me. I get that. Like you also are the type of person who has the ability to put music on for the reason of focus, and I do not.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I could see you rating it higher on that alone.
Yeah, it was good for that. It's definitely good zone out music. Like I was trying to grade papers today, and I got through like 30 papers today.
Everybody got higher grades because you were listening to this.
No, I was just able to get through them.
Right. Yeah,
and I can't usually. So like this will probably be my grading papers album. So thank you for that.
Right on.
Nice.
John, you brought the record to the table for us to listen to. We talked it through, all sorts of cool points about it. And now the time has come for you to put your official. Now, remember, this is the hottest music podcast in all the land. So I have to assume that the Gorillaz are waiting for this. So no pressure. But what is your score of this record?
Now, although I love this album a lot, it's not a perfect 10, and it's not even a 9 for me. I was kind of teetering between a 7 and an 8, so I don't know if you're allowing a 7.5.
Yeah, we had, I can't remember which record, but somebody recently came in with a half and we allowed it. So
yeah, so I would give it a solid 7.5. And I'm glad that you two both validated my point of it's great for studying.
Right.
and just getting stuff done.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel very validated in that fact.
Yeah. This is the type of thing.
Thank you both for that.
I could put on, like, people will do that. They'll put on music and then like clean the house or whatever. I can't do that because you need your hands to clean, and I cannot clean what with all the air drumming and the air guitaring. So like, you know what I mean? Like I have to stop off for that. You understand. I mean, that's just a normal thing.
I get very nervous when you drive.
Oh, no, don't talk to me about it. I have the air drumming game on lockdown driving.
I know.
And
it's just the hands.
Do you do the full-on bass drum pedal too?
Oh yeah.
On the brakes?
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. You kidding me? Of course. I'm
great. Yeah.
Don't talk to me about air drumming in the car. I'd be grabbing cymbals in the air and stuff. It's fantastic. So, but yeah, that's how I feel like this is the one record that I would be like, oh, put that on if we're gonna get stuff done around the house. So
yeah.
So Gorillaz, Plastic Beach, if you haven't heard it, if you are the person who's like, yeah, I fell off after the first two, hopefully we gave you enough reasons to at least check this one out. There's enough here, I think, for everybody. No matter what type of music you're going in for, I think there's at least some here for you. And that's at least my personal opinion of it. And we thank John for bringing this record to us, because this is not something I would have picked at all. And I have not even heard their first two records, because I heard were the singles all over, and I was like, okay, I got it. So for me, I was excited to get into this just because I figured it was going to be much different than their first two.
You don't got it, man. If you only heard their singles, you don't got it. There's a lot.
Right on.
Yeah.
I know somebody used to bring Demon Dates on vinyl over when I used to have music night on Fridays. And so I have heard that record, but whilst in the middle of giant arguments about other music. So I haven't intently listened to it. Next week on the program, we have a fun episode lined up. We're going to be joined by the Dad to Rock podcast, who you always hear us reading their comments on our show. It's actually the Dad to Rock YouTube channel now, but they will be setting in with us, and Michelle will be returning to the show. And it's going to be a fun topic in the first place, especially for Michelle, because Michelle is a newer parent, and we are going to be covering the topic: how has becoming a parent changed your listening habits? Whether it's like I mentioned the Eminem songs, where when my son got to a certain age, I was like, oh, can't listen to that with him in the car anymore, or whether you're listening to different types of music because your child's into it now, things like that. So that's going to be a fun discussion. We will have that out for you next Monday, as always. I want to thank Lauren and John for being here together on the program. Lauren, thank you again for agreeing to marry me. That was gracious of you.
You're welcome. And I was also happy to fill in Michelle's shoes by saying something dumb.
Can I be the first to congratulate you two on air?
You are, and you did.
Congratulations, you two.
Thank you.
On air.
Thank you, sir. But yeah, and John, am I wrong? This is your second appearance on the show, and I believe you guys are tied now, right?
We are tied now.
You guys are tied now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've really got him beat on the YouTube channel, though.
Right. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
That's for sure. And if you heard this episode and you said, my God, Where have John and Lauren been all my life? They've been on the Beard Owl podcast where they talk about what's that, two of the greatest things in the world?
Beer and Weird Al.
Yep. They talk about those two topics every single week and a multitude of other topics along in because Weird Al encompasses the whole world.
It's true. Weird Al is the world.
That's true. As we always say about this time, without music, life would be a mistake. Bye.
The Infectious Groove Podcast is hosted by Russ Robinson, Kyle Wimple, and Michelle Koselecki. Produced and edited by Russ Robinson. Intro and outro music composed by Chris Kimmel. Recorded with a Rode Podcaster Pro and Rode Pod mics.